The first sermon that was ever preached in Lubbock County was in May of 1890 by a circuit-riding preacher named H.C. Bandy. This was preached out at the old Singer store at the present-day Lubbock Lakeside. There were 4 wagons of people that came for that first church service, when there were only 33 people listed as residing in the Lubbock County at that time. It wasn't long after that time that they hired their first preacher, who was Liff Sanders. He too was a circuit-riding preacher. And when he came to Lubbock, he not only wanted to preach for the congregation here, but he wanted to go out into all of these communities and counties around Lubbock. And he is responsible for establishing most all of the congregations in this western part of Texas. In a few years, this small group of Christians here was sending $10 a month over to New Mexico to a missionary. And by 1925, they were even financing a missionary in Japan. So you can see the scope of what was coming. But the big thing happened in 1937, right in the middle of the Depression, and they hired their first missionary to be our full-time missionary. He went over into New Mexico, and he established, this was Otis Gatewood, and he established churches in Eunice and Hobbs and Las Cruces, New Mexico, and eventually went up to Salt Lake City and began to work there. This man was an amazing person. But there was another amazing person that was coming on the scene at just about that same time, and that was Norval Young. He became our minister in 1943. And he was, I would say, was the great visionary. No one could have dreamed what was done in the way of mission work during those 14 years. The children's home was established in 1953. In 1947, we sent missionaries, the first missionaries of any religious group, into Germany. In 1957, Lubbock Christian College was established. On and on we could go. Shortly after Norval arrived here, he and Otis made great plans. As soon as the war was over, and by that time it was evident that the Allies were going to win, and they started planning for to send missionaries into Germany. So in 1946, not many months after the war ended in Europe, Otis and Paul Sherrod, who was an elder here at Broadway, went into Western Europe. And they went especially into Germany because that was where they were wanting to start their work. And they made friends with General Lucius Clay. And along with his interest in their work, they decided that Frankfurt should be the place where they would start that first missionary effort. It was a very difficult time. People were still starving. 600,000 meals were furnished to the people of Frankfurt. Otis recounts those years in a little book that he has written, Preaching in the Footsteps of Hitler. Harold and Klein Payton were 2 of the men that were here, and at that lectureship, they committed themselves and their wives to go into Italy, another war-torn country of Europe. After they were working in Italy, Harold Payton made the acquaintance of Art and Jean Succi, who are now members of this church, and their son, Steve, and his wife. Harold converted them to Christianity. And today we are seeing the blessings of those tentacles of mission efforts that have been made in the Lord's name. Next week, we will have hundreds of flags in our auditorium that will show the different places that Broadway has been with their mission efforts. I believe this to be just a mere small number of the works that have been done by this congregation over their long 123 years of history. None of this could have been possible without the blessing of the Holy Spirit in guiding and directing the people of Broadway. It is through no efforts of our own, but through the blessing of God and His divine guidance that this group of people have been used to bring glory and honor to His name in the world.